So today's not quite $1 million loft listing has this really great view to the south of the new U area in DC. And as you can see the Washington Monument in the distance. It seems like you should be able to see the Capitol, but I think some buildings are blocking it. Anyway, this building has some things to recommend it. It's a nice new shiny building. It was built as part of a wave of gentrification around the turn of the century, meaning 12 years ago. It was built in an area that formerly held little teeny homes that belonged to low-income people, and privately owned usually, and a bunch of abandoned property, and an old hospital behind a chain-link fence that the DC government was taking bribes about who it would let develop it, and only when it finished its long, decade or two period of bribe taking and political calculations about which cronies it wanted to reward did it let that go. And those are townhouses called Harrison Square near here now. I think when they were first done, it was the very beginning of the boom, like 96. And you could actually buy those townhouses for under $200,000, I believe. Very, very low. Now they're like $750 and $8. Anyway, this building in general is not as fancy as it could be. There are lots of places kind of in the public spaces, not this living room, which is pretty nice, where corners were cut. The really interesting thing about this building is that it's where Huma Abedin owns a 2-bedroom that she paid $749 for, I think, years ago at kind of the height of the boom, probably when this was fairly new. I've actually forgotten the exact price of this unit. I'll have to look it up, and I'll put it in type in the blog, but it won't be orally on this video. My blogs, by the way, if you're finding this on YouTube, there's a blogspot version of the blog called Metropolitan Homes, and there is a WordPress version of the blog called $1 Million Listings, because we do try to throw in a lot of listings that are over $1 million, although we end up with a lot that are just under, and we toss in probably about a third of our listings are things that are not anywhere near $1 million, and they're like $300,000 or $400,000. You can see what I mean by, this is not a particularly expensive or fancy tub, and although it's got jacuzzi jets, this tub isn't fancy either. This shower isn't fancy. There's granite and stainless steel everywhere, and high ceilings and hardwood floors and big loft windows, but it's not like it's really over the top in any way compared to what it could be and what other things are. I like the floor-to-ceiling windows, though. Anyway, Huma Abedin owns a unit here. I think she bought it before she married Anthony Weiner. I don't know if she spends any time here. I don't think it's been sold. It may have been rented. I should probably look that up. I'm pretty sure it hasn't been sold, unless it was an extremely private sale that didn't go through the multiple listing system. Anyway, here's your great living room with your view of the Washington Monument, which currently is surrounded by scaffolding and is illuminated at night. The scaffolding is because it still hasn't been repaired from the earthquake damage from several years ago. I'm going to show you just a little bit about the public hallways so you'll have a better idea of what I mean by this not being all that glamorous building. You can see how very plain they are. And all this junk, like these exit signs and fire alarm things, they're all required by government codes now. There's a fire alarm pole, but it looks kind of like a nice, clean, neat version of a very inexpensive rental. And actually, when these were built at the height of the boom, this is a building that people, like the Church Street Lofts actually, people were buying them before they were built on the idea that they might not even want to live in it, but by the time it's finished, they would flip it. It'd be worth $100,000 more than their contract that they paid, their reservation agreement that they had signed to buy it before it was constructed. And all they would have done is tie up a 5% down payment until the settlement. And so they'd put $20,000 down to buy a unit that they were borrowing another $400,000 to buy, and then they'd sell it for $500,000 6 months later when it was actually finally constructed and could be sold. And so they'd make $100,000 when all they did was put $20,000 in an escrow account for 6 months. So there are a lot of people who did that here, and they got caught all at once. They couldn't sell things for enough to pay all the transaction costs, or they couldn't even sell them for any more than their reservation agreement, or maybe they couldn't sell them at all. Couldn't sell them without having them empty and on the market for months. So they got rented out and then sold slowly later. And I think there are a bunch in the basement here, which have these little windows only at the top of the roof of the apartment, the ceiling of the apartment. And I think there's some of those that probably have never sold and they've just been turned into rentals. You can see there's a smaller loft, new construction across the street. And you can see Ducey's cranes in the background with all the construction going on. I see at least 3 cranes in just this one visage. See 3 more cranes over that way. It's Boomtown, your taxes at work. Actually, I see 4. Oh, I see 5 cranes in that shot.